there's a lot about Russian misinformation and disinformation on social media and like interfering in foreign elections type accusations. So you can see that they would have stuff to talk about.
Patrick Maguire here on Times Radio, still joined by Robin Brandt and Timandra Hartness. Overnight, the Wall Street Journal reported that Elon Musk has had regular secret contact with Vladimir Putin about personal topics, business and geopolitical tensions since late 2022. We were just talking about Vladimir Putin striking alliances in this fractious geopolitical time and amid all the pressure he's facing over the invasion of Ukraine. I have to say to Mandra, when I read this, I was slightly alarmed because we can safely assume Putin's not getting in touch to ask for a blue tick.
Well, or is he? I mean,
maybe.
Look at how all the furore about when Trump was first banned from Twitter and then allowed back on, and how important that was seen as being. So, and there's a lot about Russian misinformation and disinformation on social media and like interfering in foreign elections type accusations. So you can see that they would have stuff to talk about. But I mean, obviously Musk is in effect very powerful just because he's very rich and he's involved in all these projects, not just social media, but also big industrial projects and space and so on. But he must love the feeling of being so important that Putin wants to have secret meetings with him.
Yeah, indeed. And Robin, some of the stories we've read about Elon Musk now might make a little bit more sense because listeners will obviously know he owns X and Tesla and started PayPal, but one of his biggest and most significant industries these days is Starlink, the satellite communication service. Now, he delivered lots of those satellites to Ukraine, but there's always been a slight controversy about whether they work in Crimea, you know, the extent to which he's actually willing to help. And now he's been in regular touch with Putin. A lot of this makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I saw Starlink from the door of the house.
Yeah, it's flying over the UK at the minute.
You get the train
train
in
of
the sky,
satellites.
don't you? Yeah, and it's half the satellites in the sky is about 10,000 are owned by Starlink. There's about 5,000 are down to Elon Musk. I read in a reliable newspaper last week. So that's an illustration of the scale, isn't it, of what that operation is? And that for me is the most interesting thing. And the Wall Street Journal hints at that when it says there were discussions between the two men. It claims in which President Putin asked Elon Musk to ensure that Starlink wasn't operational over Taiwan as a favour, essentially, to Xi Jinping. For me, one of the most interesting things here is the idea of the back channel between Elon Musk, who is now such a public proponent for Donald Trump and such a public supporter of the prospect of Trump 2.0. And the idea that Elon Musk is someone who is carrying messages between the two men, even though we apparently, according to Bob Woodward, the two men have spoken on the phone anyway, that fascinates me, that the link between these two political leaders, one aspiring to be for another term, and in the middle is Elon Musk, who has the ability, the power, the funds, the resources to simply float between the two.
Yeah, indeed. And I think the right word there is definitely power. It's a reminder of, because there is a degree of absurdity about Elon Musk's character, you know, the eccentricity, giving his kid an indecipherable string of characters as a name, you know, the sort of Howard Hughes-esque eccentricities, that sort of thing. But the fact he's in regular touch, it's not just, you know, he met him once on the fringes of Davos or whatever. He's in regular touch with Vladimir Putin. It's a reminder, Timandra, of the huge amount of power this guy holds.
Well, but I think the Silicon Valley, the owners and runners of the big companies in Silicon Valley, they are the new industrial giants. You know, they are the Rockefellers and Carnegies of today, which is, and I mean, at least Musk also makes physical stuff. Some of the Silicon Valley giants are, their business is basically advertising. They're some of the richest companies in the world because of advertising, essentially, which I don't think bodes well for the world economy when, like, the two biggest businesses, or two of the biggest businesses, basically make their money from internet adverts. Like, well, you know, who's producing stuff? But to return to your actual question, yes, those people are really powerful and they're not elected and they're not answerable to us. And it's a reminder sometimes that we sometimes maybe trust them more than our own politicians because we're so cynical.
With our data. Well, think about ID cards.
Yeah, exactly.
We're quite happy to give all of our data to Meta or to Visa or whatever, but we this mere
Yeah.
suggestion that the government should hold all this centrally, we say absolutely not.
Well, exactly. And private companies do have this, and they're not answerable to us. And I think it's easy to forget that. Also, we've tended to see a lot of the Silicon Valley people. I mean, I think Musk is different there, but a lot of the Silicon Valley companies and people, we have tended to see them as very liberal. I mean, remember Google when Trump was first elected, that Google made a big thing about we are going to any of our employees around the world who are refugees or anything, we're going to look after them, or because one of the founders was himself an immigrant, and so they're seen as these very liberal values, but actually they are at the end of the day massive capitalists. I mean, for example, a lot of these companies are very poor on trade union rights, so they're like, oh yes, no, we're or we treat all our employees equally. We're very diverse. We're going to look after the immigrants and so on. But, you want to start a trade union there and agitate for better work pay and conditions, then you'll find out a different story.
And just never forget as well, SpaceX, the business of which we've been seeing so much of recently, a major, Pentagon contractor, strategically so important, not just for the exploration of space in the future and a much better cost, but also, of course, what else is the space business so important for? And that's strategic missiles and the military applications that it has. And he is a huge player in that world and continues to have a significance and a power solely because of that.
It's very interesting that this is leaked, by the way, and you wonder whether that reflects a degree of alarm among the sort of US defence intelligence community, given that, as you say, a lot of what Elon Musk is doing beyond the politics, beyond the X, is so important to America's national security that it's quite difficult to discern why this would have leaked or what whoever's leaking it is trying to do with this story. But you do wonder whether it's putting Elon Musk on notice slightly.
Exactly, cui bono. I mean, it's a week before the election. He's become so public in his support for Donald Trump and is essentially so closely linked with him. And one would suspect that it was those who don't want to see Trump in office again who may benefit from having this out there.
Have either of you ever met Elon Musk?
I've met someone who's met him. I know that's not good enough.
I met someone at a wedding once who'd met him as well. Yeah.
I almost met him once when I was out at some intergovernmental meeting in the Middle East doing.
And you say you're not a public intellectual.
Doing interviews for a radio series for the BBC called Future Proofing, and he was also there, and we were trying to corner him and track it down. And the producer was honestly on the verge of kind of kidnapping his children in order to get an interview, but we did not get an interview.
That's a shame.
It is.
Sheila gets in touch on the text. Elon Musk didn't create or found PayPal or Tesla. He doesn't create. He just jumps onto others' creations. Is that true, Timandra?
I don't know. I think he did co-found PayPal. I mean, that was back when stuff was new.
He's a co-founder of Tesla. That is the case.
Yeah. He might not be, inventing the cars himself, but he was.
That's the thing.
He was there on day one.
He's not an inventor. He's not like I have this wonderful creation now. How can we make it big? He's a businessman.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, we'll be hearing lots more about Elon Musk over the course of the next week, certainly. He'll be making sure of that. And given that we were just speaking about Musk and his regular contact with Vladimir Putin, people, and the point you raised earlier, Robin, about Silicon Valley bosses being powerful when they were liberal. I mean, I saw a great graph the other day about the changing political allegiances of Silicon Valley types. There does seem to be a political shift underway. You're much like the US tech community is sort of embracing Trump now.
Yeah, I mean, and many of them are libertarians, aren't they, as
Yes.
well? We talk about them being liberals, and Timandra kind of eloquently explained that. But, Elon Musk is a libertarian. I think it's a label he would welcome, and many others of them are. And we've seen a physical shift away as well from San Francisco and the area around there, which, Silicon Valley, and a move towards Texas and other areas of the US, which are more sympathetic, if nothing else, because of the tax regimes, to these businesses. So we're seeing an intellectual shift, a political shift, but also a physical shift away as well, away from this place that gave birth to Silicon Valley and gave birth to those people, so to speak. So they're demonstrating their changing view of the world with their feet as well, and not just what they say and what they do.
And you've been writing to Andrew for a long time about the sort of intersection between ideas and tech and business and politics. Have you noticed these characters changing over time?
Yeah, I think there was a period sort of at the end of the 20th century when there were a lot of very young, idealistic, basically students coming out going, oh, technology can change the world and we can have this wonderful world where everyone's equal and everyone's connected. Born out of a really limited world experience, which was, I'm a very clever college student in California. And then reality kind of hit, and there was the dot-com crash when lots of people who'd started businesses with this idealistic sense that the rules of capitalism no longer apply because it's online suddenly went, oh no, we do actually have to somehow have some income. So Google went from like, hey, no, we can democratize all the knowledge of the world, to, well, we're going to have to sell adverts in order to finance all this stuff. And I think, I mean, you could look at it as just a growing up process in some ways of individuals going from idealistic student with no world experience to I'm now running a large business and I have to get money in off people to keep it going.
Sounds a bit like Times Radio.